Welcome to the NAMM show. You are trapped here like us. You know you are because you just waited half an hour in the security line to go through that metal detector. Even though all you had in your pocket was a wallet, you parked your car in another state. You want to get the most out of why you're here in the North Hall. Therefore, you're looking for free stuff, swag, autographs, and free software, right? Yes. Well, you've come to the right place. This is McDSP. We're going to have my good friend Lovy Longomba talk about all the things he does for like Knife Party, Iggy Azalea, stuff like that. All the things my kids listen to. Anyway, and when he's done with that, we're going to give away some plugins. All you have to do is stand and watch. And if you don't win a plugin, that's okay. We'll still give you a really cool collectible 20th anniversary t-shirt because McDSP's been celebrating our 20th anniversary all year. Well, at least at the NAMM show. 4-day show, by the way. Pace yourselves. No shouting because it's a 4-day show. This is day number 2. Are we straight on that? Okay. Lovy, what have you been up to, sir?
First of all, congratulations. 20 years. Everybody, give them a hand, you know? Yeah.
Only with customers like you do we get to 20 years.
Well, you know, I've been working on a lot of things the past few years, from Iggy to Gwen Stefani to Tiny Temper in the UK. But I took this past year off just focusing on my own music. I think I told you guys I was working on a project, so that's all been my focus for the past 8-9 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've been working on like a producer debut.
Okay.
And yeah, you hooked me up with some plugins and I'm putting them to use.
Okay, well, you're doing all the magic. We're just giving you some simple tools.
Yeah, so I've been working on some things and I just wanted to show how powerful some of these tools are in a practical way, you know, in a real way. And, you know, a lot of demos are like with bands and things like that. But I think like majority of the people are like electronic musicians. So I wanted to show it how I use it. I'm not the most technical guy. I hope I'm more musical. Would you say that? Yeah, you know, I try to be musical, so that's pretty much it. I want to show you what I'm doing, and I know we'll have some fun. Yeah.
Sounds good? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get to it then.
All right.
Move that over for you.
Yeah.
And for the
Amazing.
record, so like my dad watches all these episodes when we put them on YouTube, and he goes, "Who's this Lovy guy? He's like more animated than you." Like, yes, he is. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think so too, Dad. Anyway, Lovy, take it away.
I mean, before I start, I'm just going to play the song that I'm going to demo the vocal for. Because I feel like in home studios, I think apart from the bass, I think one of the more difficult thing is usually to get vocals right. And a lot of people struggle with that. And I want to show how I do it and how I cheat pretty much. Because I believe like when you have plugins, it shouldn't be rocket science to get anything done. You know, so I'm going to play for you a few songs that I'm on my project coming out really, really soon. And you're going to see it everywhere. And I'm going to play something and then I'll show you what I'm doing with that. Cool? So I'm going to play a song called Sofrito by my good friend. He's an artist. His name is Vils. And this song features me. It's my production. I mixed the whole thing. Did everything myself. You know, and yeah, let's see how this is going to sound.
She want a showstopper, and I want a headbutter. I need you to know what the real nigga needin'. I parade with no problem. No fight with my whole papa. And she'll make it more papa. Whipping your missus, she lives in the kitchen. What's mixing got me caught up. No more liar. No more liar. I don't even want another lover. When I'm with her, I'm thinking, no, yeah, oh, man. Oh, man. I don't even want another lover. When I'm with her, I'm thinking, no, yeah. Tonight, I need you. When she feed me love, it's sofrito. I need you. When she feed me love, it's sofrito. Sofrito, sofrito. When she feed me love, it's sofrito. Sofrito, sofrito. When she feed me love, it's sofrito.
So that's just one of them. Do you guys like that or? Thank you. And I'll show you because a lot of times people think like when you're working on a different style of music, it means that you know, your process in how you're going to do things is going to be different. The truth is, it's not really that different in my mind, you know. I'll play you like that's a male vocal. I'll play you something else that is slightly different.
They said I'd never be shit. Now their hands up to the ceiling. I wanna make you a believer. I wanna make you a believer. Yeah. Got you hollering and screaming. I'ma bring you to your knees, yeah. I wanna make you a believer. I wanna make you a believer. Gonna make you a believer.
So that's just another example, like a female vocal. Now, when I'm working on vocals, I think of three things. I want it to sound, you know, obviously you want it open, especially if you're doing a lot of modern music. You want that good top end. The problem with getting a beautiful top end is that sometimes vocals can be harsh. The upper mid-range stuff is always like, it's always been chaos for me, you know? When you start like notching out frequencies, before you know it, your vocal is not the same vocal anymore. So one thing that I thank this great genius right here for making was this amazing plugin. The 6034 is like probably one of my favorite things. Now, what I love to do, because it's a multiband compressor, but pretty much you have every compressor you ever wanted in every different band. That's pretty much what it is. And when I got this, it was like, wow, you know, the possibilities just increased, you know? So the thing that I like, I actually use multi-band compressors as an EQ. So I use an EQ to do the traditional things, like this is one of my favorite. I probably have used this forever. I mean, I've used the E606 like forever, you know. But what I started doing was that Colin's things are absolutely musical. You know, they are completely musical, and I use I'm really loyal to his stuff, because when I moved here about like 10 years ago, I watched a video. I think it was like Mix It Like a Record or something. I think there was a mixer called Charles Dye. That's the first time I ever saw anything McDSP. And yeah, the analog channel. I mean, those things I still use to this day, you know. And a good engineer friend of mine, his name is Eric. Eric taught me most of the things that I do with McDSP stuff. So I love this EQ because it's very musical, and I don't like to do so much with EQs, because if the vocal is recorded right, if you start manipulating too much, most of the time you're messing up what is already good. So what I love to do with multiband compressors, and why I love them, is like an example. If I have just a regular compressor, right, and I have a vocal, when you're compressing, maybe it's the compressor may either react to the low end more or the upper top more. I mean, depending on the vocal, it will react. I mean, things will react differently with what you're doing. Now, multi-band compressors, the good news is I can actually control how much compression I want on individual bands. So pretty much you can also, I mean, you can use the makeup gain pretty much like an EQ, because really to me an EQ is just a volume knob for every frequency, if you think of it like that. You know, so what I started doing was like, I will use like a typical just EQ to like just roll off the bottom, what I don't really want, and I'll play you the vocals so that you can hear it. It's from the first song I played. Maybe, let me see. Okay, boom, all right.
Showstopper, and I want a head doctor. I need you to know I'm with something, you're up there, up there.
So when I was listening to this,
One another lover. When I'm with
let me highlight that. All right.
Tonight, I need you. When she feed me love, it's a
So especially when you're working with very dynamic vocals, right?
She wanna
Because
show
vocals are very difficult to deal with because it's not like a consistent thing. It's always going like this. It's always changing. So the more control you have, the better, right? So what I usually do is like I'll use something like this.
She lives in the kitchen, was mixing, got me caught
Now,
up.
already what I love about this plugin is that number one, there's this master thing, right? So I can set like whatever ratio I want of whatever band I'm working on. Like if I really want to work on the mid range, right? An example. So whatever I set, if I use this and this is my probably starting point, whatever I move on this, it will change everybody else. So we will always be in perspective of every other band. Then you can adjust this manually for every band. So what I usually do is like this is usually my problem area. Between the 1K going up is usually hell for me because it's either somebody sounds or that's where even the S's are crazy there. But with a multiband compressor, if you use it right, you might not even really need a de-esser much or even you overly use a de-esser. When you use an EQ, you boost. A de-esser is pretty much, I think it's a compressor, right? That is pretty controlling like one area. So multiband compressors are better for me because I can control everything and I can use it as an EQ. So I'm not using a million plugins to achieve like something that I can do with 2 plugins, right? So this is what I will do. So I will start with here. I don't know what emulation of whatever this is, but I love it. You know, the other ones are pretty much obvious, but this is one of my favorite. So I'll be like somewhere like here, and then I'll use the makeup gain for as much as I'm compressing or whatever. I'll use the makeup gain to make up for that. So when I do that, I start now checking where I am overall, depending on everything else, right? So once I get everything going the way I want, I start using the makeup gain to make it feel like I'm EQing it. So first I control it, and then the makeup gain is what I use as an EQ, because to me an EQ, again, is just a glorified volume knob that goes on every frequency, right? So if I have this, like I'll reset this and put it to, I'll put it to 0, right? Now we just have every band compressed pretty much. We have the mid going, we have the low mids going, and the low, nothing is really going on there, but we can exaggerate it if we want, And then what I start doing is I start working on the makeup gain now. So maybe I'll do 4 dBs over here, but I'm always keeping it in perspective. Maybe 3 here, maybe 2 here, maybe that there. So now, just after compressing and doing that, if I bypass this, right? Watch this.
She want a showstopper.
That's without that going on. Then when I do this,
I need you to know what the real nigga need and operate with no problem.
Pretty much everything opens up. The top end is not harsh. Everything is in control, and it sits better in the mix. So many times when you're using just a single band, some frequencies may be fighting certain things, and if they push other things. And when you use a single band compressor, sometimes the S's actually become much louder. I don't know if it's in my head, but if you use a single band compressor, the S's, because you're trying to level everything, the high peaks are brought down to even up with the other guys. But if you use this, everybody is being controlled differently. And the beautiful thing about this plugin is that you can have, like, let's say, I think this might be an LA2A, maybe. Maybe, who knows. But you can go through different plugins, and you will have similar ratios, and you can test it as you go. That is unheard of. That is magical. Think about having, like, one plugin that is emulating everything, and you can just go through it without having to reset every time you change it. So that was pretty genius, and that saves you time. Because if you're working on a song and you want to hear if the quality or the tone or however the sound of the compressor, does it work with your mix, it's easier if I just have to go through it like this instead of having, all right, let me get another compressor and let me A-B. Most of the time they won't sound the same because They are not the same software. They are not written the same way. The gain may be off by, you know, so it's a lot of things. And sometimes we think what sounds louder is better. So if they're exactly at the same volume when you're going through them, it makes things magical. I mean, if you go on this plugin, I think Colin put some of my presets on here. And you'll see I even have, you know, I have from drum bus to stereo bus. So I love this so much, and I use it on every single vocal that I work on. Sometimes this gives me problems because when I send out songs for mixes, the mixer has to call me back like, yo, what did you do? Because they want it to sound like that. You know, so I think like it makes you work faster, it makes you work smarter, and you get more things done. Right? Yeah, so I think like it doesn't get better than that. And I mean, the last time I talked about the ML4K, which is one of my favorite, and this is now one of my most favorite, but all of their plugins are designed to make you work faster and smarter and sound better. So for me, what always worked for me as a producer and an engineer was that using things that make you sound better and give you an edge just simplifies everything. And when you push play, when you're trying to play songs or sell songs, the better you sound. Your production may not be that great, but if you sound better, you're most likely doing better. That's pretty much the game, you know. So if you don't have this, please get it. So I don't know if anybody has any question for me. I'd love to answer it.
You have a world famous expert here. This is your chance.
Yeah.
How do I make a living making music? Come on.
I mean, you can ask me anything. I'm Grammy nominated. I've done some pretty cool stuff. So
Yeah.
I know a little bit about this crazy zoo. Any questions? How do I get the gigs? Well, that's a really good question. Now, before you can get the gigs, you have to make sure you sound good, because remember, there's a million people like him who spends like 18 hours working, you know, so you're competing with him. So the first thing is, so the first thing is you have to make sure that, don't worry about so much. You see, when you get good, because you're selling taste, right? You're selling your interpretation of what sounds good. The truth is we all think music sounds good the way we hear it. And sometimes you are convinced that this sounds good because you heard it all your life. But does it mean that it necessarily sounds good? No. That's why like you have to believe in yourself, you know, because if we all were following the same system to make things, then everybody sounds exactly the same. But you have your own taste, you have your own way you react to music. So the first thing is that I believe is like work on your skills and don't believe in your own hype. Test your own hype against people, you know. When you work on something, play it for people. Yo, what do you think? And don't play it for your wife, your brother, your sister, because most likely they will say, that sounds awesome. Pick people that are not emotionally attached to you that can tell you the truth. You know, especially non-musical people, because they won't tell you, you know, I feel like the snare should be 1 dB louder. I think the mid-range is harsh. They will either tell you the song sounds good or it's terrible, right? Because music people, we rarely, like, I had to train myself to listen to the song and not listen to individual things, you know? And that sometimes becomes our problem. Like, yo, I love the kick on that song, but it's not about the kick, it's about the overall song, you know? So that's the thing that you have to do. When you get better, it's easier when you start using like your platform, whether it's Instagram, whether it's SoundCloud, whatever it may be. Then when people listen to your stuff, they want to work with you because you're making it happen. Because believe it or not, it's your talent talent is just 1%. I mean, if you don't have if you have no ability to know pitch, I don't think you can really learn that. Because I think that's the talent part. You know, your ability, like if you hear it's not no you know, if you can't hear that, then it's a whole different thing. But if you have the ability to interpret music, then it's just building up your skill. And the truth is, anybody can learn how to produce. Anybody can learn how to mix. You just have to put your time in, and you have to develop your taste, right? That's really the only thing. When you get better, people want you because you're selling your taste. It's not so much about, I have more exposure. No. Because what will keep you in is about, like, when you get, like, an example is, the first time I worked with Gwen Stefani, right? My good friend, J.R. Rodham, amazing big producer. He called me in, Lovy, we can't get a particular thing done. We need you to come. Are you busy? I was like, I'm not busy if Gwen Stefani is in the studio. I'll be right there. So I went there, and when I got in, and within a few minutes, everything sounded so cool, thanks to this man, because I can cheat. You know, not only did I produce, moved a few things, and everything sounded awesome, and, you know, she wanted me there again, and you see, so I brought in value, and that kept me in. But if I came in and JR could do, I mean, this is an accomplished producer. He doesn't need me. So what brought me there is my taste, and my ability to stay there is what I can deliver. So what you can produce is much better than the exposure. Because if you get exposure and you're not that good, I mean, you just destroyed yourself. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. That was helpful? Cool, cool. Anybody else? Any question? Yeah. How much effects do I commit along the way when I'm producing? The truth is, production for me is a little different, and it took me a while to build up this skill set, because what happened was, when I started out as a producer, I always played music all my life. Then I really got intrigued with mixing. So when I moved here, my very good friend Dave Pensado told me, listen, you are such a good engineer, but you know what? Your production is so good. I would not stop producing if I were you. So now I had to reset again and now bring them both together. I feel like the biggest mistake is that when people are producing, they produce, then they say, I'm going to mix later. Big mistake. It's the worst thing that you could ever do. So I do it together. If it sounds good along the way, then it sounds good. Then when it comes to the end, if I need to tweak a few things, then I tweak them. But pretty much what I'm doing in production ends up in my mixing. So they work together. I don't believe like, all right, you know, I could make the bass better when I'm mixing. No. You just added 6 weeks of hell to yourself. You know? Because the truth is, the mix is never done. Nothing is ever done until you decide that, all right, I'm over it, that's it. I mean, I could go back to songs that have been released and work on them a million times and make them sound better. You know, because it never ends. And you can finish, like, there are nights I work on a production and I mix and I'm done and I'm like, yo, this is the best thing I ever did. In the morning I wake up and I listen, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? This is terrible, you know? So it's never really done. So working as you commit is always good. I believe that. And I got this from my father, watching my dad record with his band. I mean, in those days, you know, it was real to real. And there was no such thing as copy and pasting. It was, I mean, a lot of hours to do that. So everybody had to practice. When they were in the studio, the engineer had to make sure the effects are together. So they committed as they recorded. There was no Pro Tools like, all right, I can do this. There was no such thing. So I think that actually makes you better and efficient, because your taste actually gets better because you can just work and go. I think the problem with having so much options in this generation is also the options give you more time to not get anything done. So narrowing down to things that you really love and you know how to use makes your life really easy. So for me, I chose like Colin's plugins and a few others that I bring along, but mainly I never do anything without this. When I'm in sessions, usually people will be like, what's that green stuff that you always put? And I'm like, oh yeah, you mean this? You know? So always, because what you love to use will be your sound somehow, because that's what you always use and you will use it uniquely. So yeah. So in other words, that long-winded answer is that I just go and I do it as I go. I don't believe in do it later. Any other question? It can be plugin related, music business related. I'm willing to share. Yes. Okay, so he's asking about publishing. when he's asking about publishing. So how does publishing work? Well, it's very simple, but it's complicated because the music business is crazy. I mean, I believe this business is for those who are, it's really a labor of love. You really have to love this for you to get to a place where you see fruits. And the truth is this, if you're truly genuine, I believe like good things happen to good people. It may take a while, but when it happens, it really happens and it happens well. So usually how it is that if I work like the songs I worked on, I brought in songwriters and artists, and I write too and I produce, and I'm an engineer too. So whoever was in the room working on the song pretty much has a piece of that song. But now, we can decide, depending on our relationship, how much did you do and how much do you deserve on the song. So a lot of disputes with publishing is somebody just walked in the room and they were present and they're like, oh, I added that word. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. I want 50%. So, I mean, there was 6 people in the room, so one person is claiming 50%, another one. So it takes years and years to resolve that. So personally, I write with people that I have good relationships with. If I don't have a good relationship with you, I'm not even getting in the room with you. Because usually when I get into to write, I don't want to think about legal things. I want to be creative. Music is about being creative. It's about flowing. It's not about sitting there and stressing. It's the same thing with when I'm working. I don't want to sit there and pull my hair like, what is this, what is that? I just know this is probably a DPX 160. Who knows? Maybe, you know? So I just throw it in there. I already know what it is, and I just flow. So it's not so much about, all right, what is technical, this. I just want to work and flow. Because the moment, I believe like music is such an emotional thing. So if anything will disrupt your creativity or move your heart from where you can flow. I mean, even if you have great songwriters, you have the worst writing session ever. I've been in with some of the best songwriters, and one person ruined it for everybody, that we had to push them out for us to be creative. So write with people you love, you will not have any issues when it comes to publishing. I mean, I've heard like crazy stories. I've been pretty lucky most of the time, but it's a zoo. So write with friends, make good friendships, and you have good things happen. Yes? I think we're going to give away some plugins.
Okay, first, let's give it up for Lovy, please.
Thank you.